Hi, Professor Johnson. It's Ashley Allen. Today is June 24th, 2018. This is bioanatomy and physiology. Part 1, this is week 7. This is the anatomy, the gross anatomy of the central nervous system. So as you know, my brain is already cut open from part 1 of the lab, and this is part 2, our video. So we'll start with the lobes of the brain. Up front here is the frontal lobe. Side is the parietal lobe. Down here, the lower side on each end, kind of by our ears, those are the temporal lobes. And then back here is the occipital lobe. I also want to point out some things. We think of a brain as being rigid and wrinkly, and this is what you're seeing. So those wrinkles are called gyri. And the lower parts, like the dips in between them, is called sulcus. And that's what you see on a brain. And then back here, known as the mini brain, is the cerebellum. And then here's part of the brainstem. You can see it right there. Yes, I'm using my hands. I ran out of gloves. So I apologize, and I'll scrub really hard. Let's flip it over and show the ventral part of the brain. I have to be honest, I had trouble finding some of these things. It seems so much more predominant on the pictures on our lab than it did on my sheep brain. So right here, this is the olfactory bulb, or bulbs. There's 2. And then this little guy here is the optic chiasma. And then in front of that, those little small productions are the optic nerves. And then down here's the optic tract. Okay, and then there's the mammillary body in the midbrain. I cut off the meninges, but there's the pons, and then the medulla oblongata, and again the cerebellum. And then you can see down here, over here the temporal, and then the parietal lobe again. All right, let's flip this sucker over. We're going to get inside here so we can see inside of the brain. It's really neat to read about all parts of the brain, and then actually seeing it, it definitely allows you to absorb a lot more information, which I'm sure is the whole point of this, but it does help to have hands on. So we're going to open up our brain here. What I didn't mention really quick, the 2 hemispheres. This is the longitudinal fissure that separates the right and the left parts of the brain, the hemisphere. And of course, inside, what separates the left and the right is the corpus callosum. Down here, this is how the left and the right communicate. And this side's kind of coming up, but they are, of course, connected when the brain is intact. The corpus callosum. You can still see here the optic nerve on this end, and then here's the pituitary gland. Here is the hypothalamus, and then the thalamus, and the mammillary body. Then there's the cerebellum again. Down here are the pons, the spinal cord, and that's pretty much it, I believe, in terms of labeling the parts that we need to label. But you can see the the detail in here is pretty fascinating in learning about all the different layers and shapes. Each of these shapes have a function. So here's my sheep brain, and thank you. Bye, Professor Johnson.